D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The Game, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful start to your Tuesday. I want to give you guys a little behind the scenes of our show. I am usually the first to arrive. Well, David Janes is the first to arrive because he has things to do before the show. So, excluding David Janes, who is a very important part of the show. Without David Janes, we would not be on the air. I am the first of the three of us to arrive. I usually arrive 15 to 20 minutes early. Derek, he comes early too, sits in the car, usually comes into the studio 5 minutes before showtime. Willie Donick strolls in here right during the station ID. Willie sits down at 2:59:59. It's impressive. It's really impressive.
Well, usually I am in the parking lot before that. There are times where I'm in the parking lot at 2:59:03 and sprinting up the stairs. But most of the time I'm safely in the lot by 2:55. But yeah, I've been known to cut it close a few times.
Hey, but that's your thing. Cutting it close.
Yeah.
Cutting it close, but being there on time.
Well, but Nashville traffic is probably not a good idea on some days.
Yeah, Nashville traffic. But I figured out the traffic pattern. I figured it out.
We think we got it.
I would hope so.
I think I have. I think I figured it out.
This isn't the time where you put Waze on your phone and it sent you in the complete opposite direction.
No, not this.
Well, that was me.
Willie.
That was Willie.
That was Willie.
That was Willie.
He chose not to listen to.
I got brainwashed.
Yeah. He was fighting the system. No, you were going along with the system, and you knew good and well that the system was wrong, but it's so ingrained in you to believe the system, right?
Yeah.
Even though you saw it, like, man, I am supposed to be
gave
turning
the system
right
bad
there.
info.
Exactly.
I gave the system bad info.
See, that's
where
what
I
the
went
system
wrong.
does.
Yeah.
It causes you to blame yourself in that situation.
That's right. And
You
you say
knew
the system can't be wrong, so I got to go with the system.
No, but you knew.
I know. That was a bad day.
This is how.
Fortunately, today my plan worked, and I walked in right on time.
This is how
Game time is on time.
I don't know if Eddie Fogler would have.
No, Eddie Fogler. That was not an Eddie Foglerism. Not at all. He was a bus rolls guy. He's like, if you're not on the bus on my watch, not your watch, my watch, bus rolls.
And you're left behind.
This is how society crumbles, by the way.
Yeah, very true.
I just give myself over to the computer. This is how society crumbles. Don't praise the machine. All right. Clark Lea will join us at 4 o'clock/clock. Did it again. 4 o'clock today as the Commodores prepare to take on Kentucky at home on Saturday. Vanderbilt was off this past weekend, so we'll catch up with Clark Lea at 4 o'clock. Trevor Maddich, I did it again. I don't even try to do it. Trevor Maddich will join us at 4:40. Looking forward to talking to Trevor, as always. I am sure a lot of you are wondering or waiting to hear our conversation with Predators GM Barry Trotz, who normally joins us Tuesdays at 5. He will join us Thursday at 4. As we understand, Barry Trotz stayed in Europe after the team flew back from Stockholm, Sweden. So he is out of the country. But we have it locked down Thursday at 4 with Predators GM Barry Trotz. So we'll catch up with Barry Trotz in a couple of days as the Predators, they don't play again until Saturday. And a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen between now and then. We'll talk to Barry Trotz Thursday at 4 instead of today at 5. But let's start with a subject that we did not get to yesterday concerning the Tennessee Titans, and that is J.C. Latham. Derek, last week we had a conversation about which players outside of Cam Ward had the most to prove in the second half of the season. And both of us landed on J.C. Latham. We talked about other players as well, but J.C. Latham was at the top of our list. And then J.C. Latham goes out there on Sunday against Houston and commits 3 false start penalties. So talking about the state of the roster and which players on this Titans roster can be part of the solution, you would hope that J.C. Latham would be one of those players, considering how high they drafted him a couple of years ago. But it's been a rough start for JC Latham this season. I know he dealt with an injury that cost him several games. But when you look at his numbers, they're not great. Pro Football Focus charges JC Latham with 6 sacks allowed, 1 quarterback hit, 7 hurries, and 14 pressures this season. By PFF's pass blocking efficiency rating, he ranks tied for 57th out of 79 qualified tackles. So things aren't going well for the whole team, but more specifically, JC Latham. So this is the question we're going to start with today. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com. What is your concern level for JC Latham based on how he's performed this season? Willie, why don't you start today?
Disappointing. He's a guy that's critical to building a roster up. And we're going to talk, I think, about the Panthers today. So there's different routes back from oblivion, which is where the Titans are right now. The Titans are at the bottom. And it is so important that you have some people you can lean on and build around. And so I think you can't say anything other than JC Latham has been an extreme disappointment. Health has something to do with it. I would imagine his numbers would be better had he not had the injury at the start of the year, which derailed him for a while. He didn't play for a while, and it can't be easy to come back and just pick up and play really well. But that being said, the 3 false starts on Sunday, alarming. I think I heard Teron say he thought he played pretty well. Other than that, that's a pretty good front that he's blocking. I really hope for his sake and for the Titans' sake, he can move in the right direction. There's still a lot of football to be played individually for him. If he could play 6-7 good games, he's still only 22. He is a young player. It's not time to throw it out. But I was hoping he would be better, especially already having moved to the right side. You were hoping that was going to help him have more success, and it really hasn't translated.
Well, I mean, he has regressed as a player. And we can, and he would have an argument if indeed, he was approaching it trying to make an excuse for himself. I'm sure he knows he needs to get better, and at what areas he needs that to be accomplished. But you have your offensive lineman coach. You start on the left side, then they put you on the right side, then they fire your offensive line coach. Well, your offensive line coach resigns. But your first year, you didn't have that offensive line coach. So that would have been your second offensive line coach, I believe. Second, maybe third, but second at least offensive line coach. Now you're on your third, and you've dealt with injury. So all of this ends up contributing to, the way he's playing now. And now, granted, he has to play better. It seems like he's getting healthier. False starts has nothing to do with your ability to play the game. That's all a mental thing. That's all a discipline thing. So I'm not going to even, compare or associate his false starts with his play. I know ultimately it does end up that way, but false starts has nothing to do with his ability to play the position as far as technique wise. Again, false start is just a lack of attention to detail, a lack of concentration, because these are pre-snaps, mental mistakes, pre-snap penalties, and coaches hate them. But from a blocking standpoint, he's already given up 6 sacks. He gave up 7 all of last year. His pressures are not where they need to be. And they're trending on, being worse, or somewhere around that same ballpark from last year. So it seems like because of his injury, he hasn't played as well, but I would have loved to see him had he been in there and not been injured and been there throughout the whole season. How much better would he have gotten, or would he have gotten worse? Because at the beginning of the season, was he bad? I think he was learning, just like everybody else, going from one position to the next. But then he gets injured. And then now you change his offensive line coach. So there's going to be probably a regression, but to me, he has to get better. And if he doesn't, then this is going to be another question mark going into the offseason.
So there is a stat that came out after the game about J.C. Latham, courtesy of the NFL. Quote, J.C. Latham held Will Anderson to 0 pressures across 17 matchups in Week 11, while allowing just 1 pressure across his 26 other pass blocks, which sounds great. Drew Beatty, who provides film analysis for paulkaharski.com, brought up that stat, which he claims has a complete lack of context. He writes, quote, Tennessee gave Latham chip/guard help on almost every single true pass set in Week 11. By my count, Latham had only 4 matchups against Anderson without guard/chip help. So perhaps some added context to that number about J.C. Latham not giving up any pressures to Will Anderson, which on paper, incredibly impressive. But as one texter says, Jeremy in Clarksville on our text line, Latham already failed at the position he was drafted for. Give him 1 more year to prove himself, then start looking elsewhere.
See, they can't do that. We talked yesterday extensively about the laundry list of needs for this roster. And honestly, you could get Buddy the Elf. You could get Santa. If you got that at the North Pole, those guys would be like, I don't know if I could do all this in one Christmas. I can't. Let's pare this list down a little bit.
I can give you 2.
I can get a couple of these, but I don't know if I can get all these. So Latham they can't look elsewhere. He's got to be the guy. He's got to be the guy. And he's young enough. I think those numbers that you just said, Adam, are somewhat encouraging. Will Anderson's a heck of a player. Okay. That's a tough front. I think there's good football in him. You see it in glimpses. It's just a matter of getting the reps, maturing, staying healthy, getting good coaching, getting other players around him. If he's a great right tackle, that's a pillar you can build on. I know it's not, the left tackle, but I'll take a great right tackle.
Yeah,
I still think he can get there. Skoronski, a lot of doubts
getting better
until this year, and I think he's taken a good step in year 3.
It's not a bad thing that, the coaches want to help you out at that position, because helping you out helps the team. So it's not a bad thing that he got chip help or he had a combination block, because we've seen guys even with a chip block end up getting beat. We saw it for, last year a lot with Dillard, and the year before that. So it's not like it can't still happen. They're just giving him a little help out on that side. What is ideal is, you have a stud left tackle, and with that right tackle, you can give help when need be. When you're going up against a front like the Houston Texans, you can get help, especially if a guy is still acclimating himself, from an injury. And again, he needs to play better. There's no doubt. But there are circumstances to why, and it's not a bad thing that the Titans are choosing to help chip a guy on this side, while their right tackle, gets himself back in the groove of things. At least that's how I see it. But he needs to get better. I'm sure he understands that and knows that. But I'm not going to sit here and say, well, if he can't prove it the remainder of the season, we just need to go somewhere else. You can't make too many moves. Like Willie said, it's like, you're going to get rid of him, and he's still developing, to go get a guy, and you got to pay him, and he may not work. Then what do you? It's
right,
like,
that's the alternative.
Develop
you go get
these
Dan
guys.
Moore,
Don't
or
be
you
scared
go get
to develop them.
Andre Dillard. You
Exactly.
have to stay with the plan. He's young enough. I think. I mean, he's just got to make it. Like, you've got to every day. I would, if I'm Mike Borgonzi, if I'm Chad Brink, I'm telling the offensive line, I'm like, make this guy a player. I'd go to him every day, say, JC, we need you. Got to have you. Let's build. He's a critical guy. He's a critical player.
Caleb on our text line says, regardless, this team cannot afford to spend another top 2-round
Yeah.
pick on
Right.
offensive line. They need guys who can score touchdowns and prevent touchdowns. If you want to replace Zeitler, then draft one later in draft or sign a guard in free agency.
I don't even.
Good
I
point.
mean, eventually Zeitler. This was only a 1-year deal, so they're going to be looking for a guard anyway. And maybe that's one of those deals where you hope that one of these young guys that are developing behind the scenes are able to step in and take hold of that position, because ultimately you want them to grow with your quarterback and the other skilled guys. But if not, then yeah, you're going to have to get one in free agency, either way, because I don't think Zeitler. I would be surprised if Zeitler is back for another season, at least here.
Right.
One-
It's a it's a wishful thinking.
Yeah.
You think you get another year? You never know. Guy
Yeah.
will play. But I think the the texter makes a good point. You could find a guard
Mhm.
somewhere. If you draft well, which they haven't, you could get a guard in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round who is the replacement for a guy like Zeitler. It's harder to find the tackle.
By the way, the Tennessee Titans have signed James Prochet from the practice squad to the active roster, and of course have placed Calvin Ridley on injured reserve. He's done for the season with a broken fibula. So for the Strep crew out there, the Strep bros,
Got to wait another week.
Somebody else, unfortunately, has to have a minor setback.
I was about to say, what will it take? Let's ask that question for fun. What will it take for Xavier Restrepo to be added to the active roster? Because at this moment, it seems like an act of God is what it's going to take.
I think he's going to be. I think he will be activated before the season's over with. I do believe that, and I'm rooting for the young man. I hope he does come in and be a story, because he can play the game. I understand that, but at what level can he play it? Can he be a starter? Can he be a backup? Can he be a special teams guy that you throw in there every once in a while? Can he be a transition guy? You just kind of use across the board whenever you need to. Find out if he can play. Maybe they have and decided he's not ready yet. It's a good thing that they kept him on a practice squad. So they want him to develop, and I would lean on the side of the way things been going for the Titans and their injuries. And I hate to say it, I think he will be activated within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
You say it's going to happen.
Yeah,
he will play a regular season game.
I think he will.
There's
be
still 7 games left.
I think he will be activated.
It's a lot of football.
I didn't say he will play. I think he will be activated.
How many routes will Xavier Restrepo run in the regular season? Maybe that's a good question for Take It to the Bank one day. 615-737-1025. What is your level of concern for J.C. Latham? A tough game for Latham in the penalty department on Sunday. 3 false start penalties against the Texans. What is your level of concern for J.C. Latham? 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Derek wants to explore something involving another recent number 1 overall pick quarterback. We are going to see if there's anything we and the Titans can learn from what's happening in Carolina with Bryce Young. We will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Preds fans, Smashville Live returns tomorrow night at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue at 6 o'clock. See your Predator star players up close and personal. You can also get autographs and pictures. The guest tomorrow night, Ryan O'Reilly. So that's Ryan O'Reilly tomorrow night at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue and only on 102.5 The Game. D. Mays, Finnegan, and Donick 1025. The game. We are presented by Bax Homeworks. Remodeling done right. Get a free estimate now at baxhomeworks.com. Derek, over the weekend, you were wondering about something. You were wondering about the Carolina Panthers, which, to be honest, is not something I wonder too much about. I do
Me either.
I do root for a team in the NFC South, but I don't spend a lot of time worrying about the Carolina Panthers. But your point was, by the way, the Panthers defeated the Falcons on Sunday. Bryce Young, nearly 450 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. The Panthers are somehow 6-5. And in the NFC wildcard race, the Panthers, by the way, they did win 7 games over the previous 2 seasons combined. So 6-5 this season. But you were wondering about it from the aspect of Bryce Young and Cam Ward. 2 quarterbacks drafted number 1 overall. Cam Ward so far this season has been a disappointment. Bryce Young's career has been a roller coaster. You may recall Young was benched for 5 games last season for Andy Dalton. And the only reason Bryce Young got back into the lineup was because Andy Dalton sprained his thumb in a car accident. That's the only reason why Bryce Young got a second chance. But he did play better after returning to the starting lineup for the Carolina Panthers. So the question that you wanted us to discuss was, are there any things that we can learn
Yeah, because I think both teams at one point were in the same position were in the same position. The Titans are currently in that position, and the Carolina Panthers, it's not like they completely dug themselves out in their own level footing. No, they still have some digging out to do as well. But if you look at, the similarities, there are many around the football circles that believed, that the Carolina Panthers were a bad organization. There are people that believe the Titans are a bad organization. Both, believe that the rosters were bad, and both believe that maybe the number 1 guy was the wrong guy or is the wrong guy. So those are those similarities. And when you start to look at Carolina, it's like it's been 6-7 coaches in just about that many years, or 7 coaches in so many years.
Well, the Panthers have had that many
coaches.
The
Panthers, that's what I'm talking about.
It's
been an interim coach, but still they've changed the name on the label as head coach 7 different times in so many years.
Bryce Young has only had 2 full-time head coaches.
Exactly. So the lack of stability was there. And people feel there's a lack of stability here with the Tennessee Titans. But I think what the Carolina Panthers did, I think they understood it. A lot of people made a lot of fuss, and a lot of people weren't in agreement with it. But the minute they traded away McCaffrey, it started a rebuild. And I think everybody knew that. And then they traded away I think it was DJ Moore. They traded away DJ Moore.
DJ Moore was part of the package that the Panthers
receive. Or no,
the Panthers
gave up to
the Panthers traded DJ Moore as part of the package to move up to draft Bryce Young.
Exactly. So they're doing all these things, showing everybody that this is a rebuild. So you get your quarterback, and nothing is going right, and the quarterback's not able to develop in the system or in this environment. So they finally land on one coach, and it seems like now he's getting a footing on what the NFL is like. And if you just want to go by numbers, I think each year he's played. Now, granted, there's only been one season he's played 16 games, 23. I think it was 17 games. So basically, he's missed at least 1 game every season. His first year was 16 games he played. And the numbers were, he completed under 60%, 2,800 yards, 11 touchdowns, 10 receptions. That's a rookie year. And it was bad. But each year after that, if you look at his numbers, based upon the games he played, he has gotten better as a quarterback. Like his completion rate went up. Now, it could have been a part of the design of the offense and him having to take short things, but you're getting them in a rhythm. So his completion rating goes up. If you just look at it, if he had 2 or 3 more games, he would have surpassed the season before in yardage. He got the interceptions down, all while the touchdowns went up. And then this year now, he's only played 10 games, and he has close to 2,000 yards, just barely under 2,000. He's on his way to break his touchdown record already. He has 14. His previous high was 15, and he's cutting down on his interceptions. He has 7. Now they have games to go, but there are things that you can look at and say he's getting better. If you're just looking at the numbers, then that's what people do. Look at the numbers. He's getting better. So what is it that the Carolina Panthers did that allowed their quarterback to continue to, because he's developing. He's developing within that system. Yeah.
But I think here's the scary part.
But you just got to add more people around him, and that's what they're trying to do.
Maybe
they went out and got him a big wide receiver.
That will help.
Who's key for him now.
The Panthers' past 2 first-round draft picks have been wide receivers, Xavier Legette and Ted McMillan. And it also helps that Rico Dowdle came out of nowhere. He wasn't even the starting running back for the Panthers at the start of the season. That was Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard goes down, and Dowdle just goes nuts. So that helps. Looking at the Panthers, Willie,
the sacks are down tremendously.
6-5, and I'm like, how is this team 6-5? They don't score many points. Their defense is top half of the league in terms of scoring defense. But to the point
where they are at in penalties.
That's a good question. But we're trying to draw parallels here. Are there parallels for how the Panthers have handled Bryce Young that have allowed him to dust himself off and regain his starting position? Are there any parallels between the ups and downs of Bryce Young and maybe what the Titans could face in Cam Ward?
Well, let's start with the big, to me, the parallel, because Carolina, it's a nice story. They're 6-5. And I think we were all curious. What are they doing? Because when we looked a little closer, look, they gave up a lot to get Bryce Young. At least the Titans, they earned the first pick by being terrible. The Panthers gave up DJ Moore and other assets, big assets, to get Bryce Young.
And keep this in mind as well. Here's something that the Titans should not take from the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers got 4 picks for trading Christian McCaffrey.
That was
a second-round pick, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and a fifth-round pick. And the Panthers really didn't do anything with all of that draft capital. Now, some of it went to the Bears to move up, but outside of that, they didn't make their team exponentially better with the trade package they received for Christian McCaffrey, 3 years ago?
And those 2 big moves, I mean, those are big moves, trading Christian McCaffrey and then trading for the first pick. And looking at what Bryce Young has done, I still don't know how they're 6-5, honestly. And
you and me both.
But let's really get to the guts of this. If Cam Ward is putting up the numbers that Bryce Young is putting up in his third year, there's going to be a lot of disappointment in how Cam Ward is doing. I grant you, Derek, he is getting better. He couldn't be much worse.
Yeah.
And he had a bad team around him, a bad team. And it's hard to do well on a bad team. But when you're the first, this is, again, the crux of the decision that they made when they chose Cam Ward. He wasn't off the charts, the hands down Andrew Luck. Pick whoever you thought was the best can't miss. He wasn't in that category.
There's not many people that are in that category.
That's right. And so the risk of doing that, you see what Carolina's dealing with. They're excited to be 6-5. I don't know that they're for real. His numbers are not good.
They're not great, but they're not. But they're better than.
They're better, but he's the first pick in the draft.
But as long as he's developing,
gotta have more. I'm usually not that guy. I don't overreact. Like I was as realistic as anybody, saying, look, I don't care if you're the first pick or the 5th pick or the 7th pick. Usually it doesn't work as well as you think it's going to.
And Bryce Young.
Everybody has an image
Mhm.
of what a high first-round pick is going to be, and they're all over the spectrum. But Bryce Young is below average.
And he had
below average
the pedigree
in his
in
third year.
college. He had the pedigree in college, which Cam Ward didn't. Bryce Young won a Heisman Trophy. Bryce Young was part of a national championship team.
That has nothing to do with anything. I mean, once you get in this league, that stuff, yeah, because I've seen a lot of quarterbacks that have had the pedigree and have won championships. When they get in the NFL, it's just a failure for whatever reason. I don't know. But is it they find out they can't play at that level that they need to play at in order to be a starting quarterback. So I understand. And listen, I don't claim to know where Carolina has been or where they're going. I'm just following
because
the
nobody
numbers.
watches
Yeah,
them.
I'm just following. I'm following the
When
numbers.
is the last time you watched the
No, it's
Panthers
been
play?
last week when they were playing and the game went to
I
overtime.
usually watch the Panthers
Yeah.
twice a season because they
They
play
play
the
the
Saints.
Exactly. So at least
But that's
it gets to
about
watch
it.
them. But I think
about them then, and then I don't think
Right.
about them.
I'm exaggerating.
And then I don't think
we
about
all
them
see
again.
highlights and everything. We
yeah,
get that,
but it's
we don't watch them
where
close.
do they think that they are at right now? Because I don't think many people envision them winning 6 games right now. No way, no how. Nobody can sit
Right.
there and say
It's a nice story.
So they're winning despite the quarterback not being what many believe he should be. But if you look at and here we go, it's if you just look at the numbers, the most important things he's getting better at not turning the football over and not getting sacked.
Right, but he's gone from an F to about a C or C plus.
Well, I could take that, and maybe next year he'll be a B and then an A. So I could take that if I'm seeing progression.
The Panthers are going to have to decide if
that's
they
the
even
key.
want to keep
He's got to keep going.
Bryce Young.
But they're having to show a lot of patience. He lost his job in the middle of this, as Adam pointed out. If that's the track for Cam Ward, you can imagine the howling that you're going to hear in this city. I don't know what they perceive of Bryce Young in Carolina.
Mhm.
I mean, they're as relevant as they've been in a good while, so there's got to be some optimism. But it's another case. Remember, the big rap on him is historically there's not many quarterbacks 5'10", 204 that turn into stars. And yet they said he's special, he's worth the first pick. And so there's usually flaws with guys, other than those guys who come around once every, say, 6 to 10 years that seem to have everything. Caleb Williams might have had all the lights light up, and we see how he's not a smooth, going into superstardom, although he's made a nice jump. But these are all things to watch, I think, for Cam Ward. But I do think it's a really interesting case study just to look afar and say what's going on with Bryce Young, because he's the first pick in the draft.
By the way, Bryce Young this season, 23rd in QBR at 45.8, sandwiched between Joe Flacco and Kyler Murray. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on Cam Ward. Any parallels between Bryce Young and Cam Ward? Any lessons the Titans can take from the Carolina Panthers, who have been a surprising success so far this season? Again, I don't know how the hell the Panthers are 6-5. 615-737-1025. We'll take your reaction coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got some good news, because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understand the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Finn, get in Donick 1025 the game. I just had to groove out to Shania Twain for just a moment.
I was about to say. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
You're not a Shania fan?
I'm not saying that I'm not a Shania fan, but I'm not going to claim to know all her music.
Can
I
you
didn't know
imagine
that
Derek
one.
Mason at a Shania Twain concert?
I mean,
Any man
I'm
of
sure,
mine, D-Base is just
I'm
going
sure
crazy.
she has some songs that I've grooved to before.
She was the hot thing. What, 20? That was like 20-ish years ago, I want to say.
It might be a little more. It was while D-Mace was playing.
Yeah, so
D-Mace's prime might have been Shania's prime. It's right in there.
my prime.
I mean, your prime was longer than her prime. I got to say that.
D-Base is still in the prime.
Shania Twain was like maybe a 6-year run.
Yeah, I think
D-Mace
so.
is more
I
of a
knew
10,
her
12,
name. Like
10, 12-year run. You know?
I knew the name.
Yeah. She was A-list. For a
Yeah.
while.
I did see Shania Twain at the height of her popularity, and I think that may be the only country music concert I've ever been to.
Yeah, you went to a
Really?
Shania
So what
Twain
drew
concert?
you to her?
Exactly.
My parents.
Oh wow.
My parents
That's fair.
wanted to see Shania Twain.
Oh, okay.
So would you go see Shania Twain again right now? And she did some of her old hits. I don't know if she has new hits. She probably does. I'm not gonna.
Shania Twain seems like one of those artists that's doing a residency in Las Vegas.
That'd
And
be
if I
kinda
happen to
cool.
be there, I'd be like, yeah.
Let me go see her.
Go
It's
for
funny.
it.
I don't know. Like that is a funny reference. I think that's probably right. Prime for like a Vegas run. That's
yeah,
good.
ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
If
There's
I was in
nothing wrong with
Vegas,
that.
I'd be like, hey,
Pays
Shania
the
Twain,
bills.
let's go. I'll go see her. I know
She
has
did.
something.
She did a Vegas residency.
See?
So it's not happening anymore.
Hey, you think Shania can sell out, Bridgestone?
Yeah.
Oh,
There we
come
go.
on. That's not even the
Absolutely.
question.
Well, she needs to be back out touring so Bridgestone can sell it out. There you go. That's my plug for Shania Twain, wherever she's at.
Okay, let's put Shania Twain to the side. That was a fun little Shania Twain sidebar. Let's focus on Cam Ward, and we're talking about Bryce Young. And the reason why we're talking about the two quarterbacks, other than the fact they were both drafted number 1 overall, is because Derek watched the Carolina Panthers over the weekend defeat the Atlanta Falcons to somehow improve to 6-5. And Bryce Young had a fabulous game. 448 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. By the way, Bryce Young has thrown for 150 or fewer yards in 5 starts this season. So what you saw on Sunday, if you watched that game, was a total outlier. But the question that Derek wanted us to discuss was, are there any parallels between what the Panthers are dealing with Bryce Young and what the Titans are dealing with Cam Ward? Now, Bryce Young is further along in his career. Again, he was benched last season for 5 games for Andy Dalton. At some point soon, the Panthers are going to have to decide whether they want to pick up Young's 5th-year option. You're getting to that point already. Cam Ward far off from that. But the one thing about Bryce Young was he was left for dead. And Cam Ward has been disappointing without looking at the numbers. When Bryce Young struggled, he struggled. He was below the depths, as far as you could go down. And yet, this season, he's played okay. But still,
Cam Ward, if you compare his numbers to Bryce Young's rookie numbers, it's not that far off when you look at the numbers. Now, I didn't watch Bryce Young. And I think when we watch Cam Ward every week, you see things that you say, okay, can build off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Need to see more. But the numbers aren't that different. When you look at QBR and DVOA, and that's the metric that I look at with the analytics site that I've always subscribed to, FTS Fantasy. So that's kind of my reference point. But all of those numbers, they're awful. There's no way around it, right? You're hoping to see things, and you know the roster around him is extremely flawed. And that was the case with Bryce Young as well. So I think he's going to get better. Cam Ward is going to continue to get better. But I think this is the question is, would you be satisfied in 2 years? I mean, heck, 6-5 looks great, right? 6-5, even with, okay, below average numbers, that'd still be way, way better than it is now. So it's all relative.
So he's on pace 17 games, he averaged 195 yards a game. He's on pace for what, 3,000 yards. Cam Ward. Well, no, it's not that many. It's probably like 20 something 100 yards, somewhere around there. Close to 3,000. And say if he, ends up 12 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. I do think the completion percentage needs to come up. And I think they're helping him with that.
His per 17 game average based on his current yardage, 3,322 yards.
So he'll be 3,000 yards, say 13, 14 touchdowns, 8 interceptions.
And we know it's not about those
rates
numbers. Like, you have to look beyond those.
And I know it's beyond that, but you can look at those numbers and say, well, with a bad roster, bad individuals around him, players around him that hasn't developed yet. And I mean in Alec and DK and Gunner, guys that you believe will develop, and some veteran guys that just didn't pan out, whether it was Lockett and they traded him away, or Calvin because he's been hurt. So you mesh all of that in and you say, man, this kid still ended up with, these numbers. I know they're not great, but did he develop more and more each and every game during that period? And if the question is yes, then you can only sort of come up with, okay, if we add more players around him, then maybe we give him a better opportunity to succeed, and that can't happen if you don't, put the right head coach in place with the coordinator and then surround him with the right players.
One thing that I read today that was interesting, it had nothing to do with the Titans. It was actually about J.J. McCarthy. Alec Lewis.
So that's another guy that they made a big decision to keep him and let Sam Darnold go. The story's well told, right? He had an ACL, but they said he's going to be all right. He is struggling mightily as well. These are all great trackers to watch, right? It just shows you how hard it is to find the guy.
Alec Lewis, who reports on the Minnesota Vikings for The Athletic, wrote a story that was published this morning with the headline, "Can Vikings quarterback J.J. McCarthy eventually turn it around, a la Panthers quarterback Bryce Young?" It was an interesting story. Alec Lewis interviewed Adam Thielen, who is back with the Vikings, but Adam Thielen did play for Bryce Young, or with Bryce Young, and for the Carolina Panthers early in Young's career. There was one passage at the end of the story that stood out to me. Alec Lewis writes, quote, "What allowed Young to click into gear? How did the Panthers offense go from one of the league's worst with him at the helm to a respectable operation? Their staff and locker room, unburdened by internal or external expectations, stuck with the process. It guaranteed nothing, but it gave him the best chance to succeed." And I think that can be applied to Cam Ward as well.
And McCarthy still hasn't played many games when you get down to it. He's only, he got hurt. Last year, he basically didn't play. This year, he got hurt, and he only played 5 games. The numbers aren't good, but it's disappointing, right? If you were the Vikings, you had the season they had last year, and they put all their eggs in his basket, you can't be happy with how it's going.
No, you're not, because his situation isn't Bryce Young's situation. His situation isn't Cam Ward's, or his situation isn't Drake May's situation when they first came in. You're coming in with the best wide receiver in the game. You got Addison, you got Hawkinson, you got an offense that showed last year.
Your numbers should not be like this with those guys.
And that's why it's like, okay, is he the guy? And I'm not saying he's not, but see, every quarterback is sort of, you can look at every quarterback in their situation and sort of end up forming your own sort of opinion on how that player should or shouldn't be based on who's around him. You look at, J.J. McCarthy. Well, what if Bryce Young had J.J. McCarthy's weapons? What if Cam Ward had J.J. McCarthy's weapons? Would they be better quarterbacks? We don't know. We know that J.J. McCarthy has those weapons and he's not developing the way they want him to. I know that Cam and Bryce didn't. Bryce now has a legitimate wide receiver, at least they feel, and Ted McMillan, a big body guy, so he doesn't have to throw perfect footballs being 5'10" and trying to see over the line of scrimmage. The catch radius is large. So they are adding weapons to that team to help him out. And that's where I say the Titans, like, this year, they need to get a bona fide number 1 receiver. They just need to do it. They need to say, you know what? The way this game is going, we need to get us a number one guy. And if that means moving out of that spot and not taking the best defensive player, then so be it. I know we got to get sacks, but this game is about scoring points, and we can't score points. You know, we can try to generate. We've seen that we can generate sacks if we need it. And some young guys are starting to come on. Hopefully that stays that way. But we haven't shown the ability to consistently score points. So if that's the case, that's my first priority, is to get guys in here that are going to make plays for me.
Let's go to our friend Mark from Nashville on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hunting.com. What's up, Mark? Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, how you doing, Adam? What's up, D Mace, Willie?
What up?
Yeah, how y'all doing?
Good.
Hey, I heard y'all talking about Bryce Young. Well, the reason Bryce Young is getting better, man, because they building an offense around him. Like D Mace said, they added Tank McMillan and stuff. They're trading back, they're drafting pieces, and they're drafting playmakers to advance Bryce and get him to be a better quarterback. Plus, he's got a great offensive-minded coach, a coach that should have been here in Nashville, who they should have called Dave Canales. Came from Tampa Bay, Hard Bowl. He should have had an opportunity to come here, especially coach a guy like Cam Ward. But until the Titans do what Carolina has done and make good draft choices and get number one guys and playmakers and stuff, Cam's had a good year, D Mace. I mean, he's going to end up having a pretty decent year. Next year, I think he can have a better year. But like you said, they're going to have to get a number one wide receiver and maybe get another wide receiver through free agency or in the draft or whatnot in the lower rounds to advance that offense and make it where Cam will be even a better quarterback. He can go through his reads, progressions. He can improve a lot of stuff during the offseason, come back and be a better quarterback. I think that's what'll work with Cam Ward and stuff. Hey, Adam, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I did call your name first, Adam. I know D-Mace, you like to get on me sometimes. You forgot about Adam. No, I ain't gonna forget about Adam. I think about it. I think about Adam all the time. You motivate me, Adam. You really do. You motivate me.
I appreciate
You do.
that. I'm just
you
trying.
motivate.
I'm just trying to make you a better version of yourself every single day.
All right, but see, Adam, it's gonna be that way anyway. You're gonna get my best version anyway. Yeah.
All right,
But
Mark.
you have motivated me. And D-Mace said too, hey, Willie, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good, Mark.
Okay, then. Well, hey, man, as always, the king, the closer, whatever you want to call me, best day is in Nashville, unforgettable. They all listening. Y'all have a good day, man.
Thank you, Mark.
Always a
Appreciate it.
pleasure
To
to hear from Mark.
To check in from Mark.
Yeah. So Mark, hey, Mark knows what he's talking about. He's listening. That's
Look,
the good
Mark.
thing. He's
Mark
listening.
claims that I motivate him. I think Mark would make a great motivational
Oh,
Oh,
no
speaker.
doubt. He'd be my hype man. That's a hype man right there.
Absolutely.
Hype person, whatever you want to say. But I mean, and I'm not saying that, you know, Bryce Young is he's going to turn into this elite quarterback. But what I'm saying is it seems like they're dedicated to putting people around him and hopefully sticking with the plan. And if ultimately it doesn't work out with him, at least you're building the team. That's what the Indianapolis Colts found out. Like, it may not work out with the quarterback, we drafted, but we're building a team. So whoever we put in that place, a veteran guy, he can take the hose and run with it.
615-737-1025 will take your thoughts on the Titans. But coming up next, Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lea will join us. The Commodores back in action this weekend against Kentucky, and yet another big game for the Commodores. So we will catch up with Clark Lea coming up next. Also, be listening in the 4 o'clock hour because we do have tickets to give away. We have a 4-pack of tickets to AEW Dynamite and Collision at the Pinnacle next Wednesday, November 26th. So be listening in the 4 o'clock hour for your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to see AEW Dynamite and Collision next Wednesday at the Pinnacle downtown. Clark Lea joins us next, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. The Vanderbilt Commodores are back in action on Saturday, a 2:30 p.m. kickoff at First Bank Stadium against the Kentucky Wildcats. And with that, let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lea. Clark, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well, thank you. So, how did you spend your off week? And is it difficult as a coach, especially at this time of season, to take a step back when you have a chance to take a breather?
Well, to answer your second question first, no, it's not. I think anytime you have a chance to unplug, especially, like I've got young kids. So when you go and watch middle school wrestling or, middle or like elementary school basketball, it's pretty easy to kind of break away and be in the moment with them. So we enjoyed time at home and some youth sporting events on Saturday. I mean, last week I was with the team and we were putting the Auburn game to bed and shifting focus on some areas of improvement for us through self-scout. We practiced twice. The guys lifted the other days, again, Saturday off, and Sunday we were back at it. So it goes quick, but I think for everyone in the program, and I'm sure this is true everywhere, we appreciate the chance to kind of break routine a little bit, unplug. I think it's important to be able to do that so that, when you plug back in, you've got the emotional, physical energy to finish the task, which is what's ahead of us.
You mentioned areas of improvement. The defensive performances against Texas and Auburn were uncharacteristic of your program. So what must your team correct to return to form defensively to close out the regular season?
Well, first of all, I believe in our people, and I this is what a season is. It's managing the ups and downs, and inevitably there's going to be inconsistencies in performance, and we have to always have a pulse on that. But it starts with a belief in our people. Again, I think we've played a couple of really talented offenses. We have not played the way we want to play. I want to credit our defense for coming up with critical stops in the Auburn game that gave us a chance to win. And yet we know there's a higher level, and we've demonstrated a higher level of performance this season. So the challenge I've given to the staff and to the players is we got to get organized. I don't think this is about adding more calls or trying to be more creative. I think it's about being aligned and 11 guys on the same page and executing the call. And that becomes particularly frustrating for me because those are things that we've always taken pride in. But that is the challenge. And so we're going to be up against it here as we finish out the season. Kentucky as an offense is really coming into its own and really developing identity. This will be a great challenge for us to show that we've taken the learning and applied it forward. And I want to see us get off to a fast start. I want to see us play a complete game, and I want to see us play a stronger game on defense. That'll be important to our success here as we close out the season.
We'll talk about Vanderbilt's head football coach, Clark Lea. Now, Coach, you said you was able to, spend time with your family and go to some events, sport events. But I'm sure you probably had a chance to sort of, check some games out here and there. What are your thoughts on how closely contested the SEC has become? And it's really been like this, but as you see, as we start to get to the latter part of the season, that there are all these teams that are still in the mix. And I know you guys are worried about Kentucky now moving forward, but just the whole SEC as a whole, you see teams that are, that you played last week, they end up losing this week, and it's sort of this jockeying a position. So what are you thinking now as far as how the SEC is doing as a whole?
Well, this is the challenge of our league because it is so good top to bottom, and any given week, you can not be having a good season, yet you have all the pieces you need. When you put it together in the right moment, you become a good team pretty quickly. So we feel like, again, that the strength of the league means that you're going to see, you're going to no longer see these teams that just outright are better than everyone else. And so everyone's going to kind of take some licks as the season goes on. when the margins tighten, it means smart teams are going to win. So how we handle special situations, being great protecting the ball and attacking the ball, those are the areas where the wins show up. And on a bye week, D-Mace, it's fun for me to watch other guys sweat it out. Honestly, I enjoy that. My kids get upset with me because I can't stay on one game. I'm constantly flipping, but I do enjoy watching, and I think it's fun, especially when it gets down to the situations, just to see how they're managed. And I think there's a lot of learning there. But the league is great. I think we have to get what needs to be normalized is this idea that 9-3, 10-2 record in our conference is a really pretty incredible year. I think just the strength of the league top to bottom is such that, it's going to be hard to go through a season unscathed. And that's what you're seeing right now across the course of a 12-game season.
You don't have the multi-view, Clark? You
Yeah,
can't
that's what I
watch
was
all
about
of the
to say,
games
the
at once?
multi-view.
Well, listen, I'm learning from you guys. I don't have the multi-view. That's obviously something I need to get. And so
D-Mace can help you with that.
I
Clark,
can help
he's
you with
ready.
that. Willie
Yeah.
is
Don't
against,
come
yes.
to me. I am in the dark ages.
Willie
I
does not want to go to the multi-view, coach. So don't ask him.
Willie, where are you in the world right now? That's the biggest question.
Well, I'm back from Sweden, where I didn't watch any TV. That was hard. Like these scores were coming at like midnight, 1 a.m. And then there were other games starting. The night games here started at like 2 a.m. In Sweden. So it was not a great weekend to watch college football, but it was a great experience in Stockholm.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Now, Coach, you talked about your defense and some things you want to see them improve at. What are some things, and I know it's hard to say your offense is averaging close to 40 points a game, but there still are some things I'm sure you would like to get better at. So have you sort of nailed down those things, and what are they that you want to see your offense get better at?
Well, look, the last two games we've had a turnover and we haven't gotten a turnover. So a giveaway and without a takeaway is a problem for us. And, that'll come back to haunt us at some point. We can't create extra possessions for these other teams. How we protect the ball, make good ball decisions will become critically important. I think the fast start element of what we want to do, we've played from behind in the past two games against Auburn, 14-3. And I believe it might have even gotten to 17-3. We were, up against it, took a deficit of 20-10 at halftime. I'd like to see us get off to a better start, obviously on both sides of the ball, but offensively in particular to score points early and to try to create separation. And so there's certainly things we can work on. I love how we've adapted our personality the last 2 weeks to be able to overcome those deficits. I think that'll help us as we get in this stretch run. But this is about how you put together a dominant performance, and that means we have to generate possessions for our offense through our defense. We have to be efficient with our possessions offensively. We have to make sure that we finish all our drives with kicks. That's field goals, extra points, or punts. None of those are bad plays for us as a team. And then tap into the things that make our offense special. And that means we can change tempos. That means we can spread the field. It also means we can put the opponent in a box and play smash mouth football when we need to.
Clark Lea is with us, head coach, Vanderbilt Commodores. They've got Kentucky coming up on Saturday. Clark, one of the observations I've seen, and this is, I know these are things that are sort of out of your control, and you have to keep your team on point and do its job. But as the week comes forward, like tonight, they'll have the rankings and the committee will talk about all these teams. I'll give you an example of they will say, well, Vanderbilt hasn't beaten a ranked team, but when you play these teams was important. And also, let's take a win that you guys had earlier. South Carolina, who hasn't had a great year, is still good enough to get up 30-3 on an undefeated team. That speaks to the depth of the SEC. And I'm just wondering if the committee can put all of this in context as best we can, because we are conditioned to just look at a one-loss record, even though I know they're trying to expand on that a lot.
Well, I hope when they say that, they go to the hotline and Willie from Nashville.
There you go.
Yeah,
if you give me that hotline, I'm glad to call if you tell me when.
Okay, let me work on that for you. Yeah, I mean, look, I there's so much of this that falls outside our control. I do think Missouri's back in the rankings. I believe, I could be wrong there, but it's interesting just to this point. I mean, the number, I think at one point we've beaten 3 top 15 teams this season. It's like the first time in a long time, maybe ever, that we've done that. And yet none of them, end up ranked at this point in the year. That is the depth of the SEC. One of those teams is South Carolina, who you reference. And obviously their performance on Saturday was such that you can see the punching power there. But again, what I talk to the team about is just like, there's so many external, SEC is going to be here this weekend, the network, and they're going to do their show here, which is great. SEC Nation will be here. I'm so excited. And they'll set up shop on alumni lawn, and they, for hours and hours, they're going to talk about all the different scenarios. We're going to let them do their job, and we're going to focus on ours. And that's doing the best we can to put together a winning performance against Kentucky. The only thing we can do is focus on winning. If we do that part, then we'll see where the chips fall. And, hopefully there's a recognition of the fact that a 10-2 season in the SEC is a deserving ticket for the playoffs. But that right now is out of our control. We got to focus on Kentucky. That's what we'll do. I trust our team to do that. And we're excited for the challenge on Saturday.
And with that in mind, Kentucky has played a lot better the last few weeks. Where have you seen them improve?
Well, they made a change at quarterback a few weeks ago, and they're playing a redshirt freshman who's really, I think, starting to get some chemistry with that offense. He's got a couple of really talented running backs and receiver skill that they're dangerous offensively. And the defense is always been good at Kentucky. The system is hard, but they've been particularly disruptive the last few weeks. So this, it's a credit to Mark Stoops. He's weathered what was a lot of adversity early in the season. He's done a great job kind of stabilizing and finding the identity and the pulse of the team. I think in the portal era, sometimes it takes time to build that chemistry and to get the team to gel. And they're doing it at the right time. And again, we expect a physical game on Saturday. We expect a really tough opponent in Kentucky. And, we'll have our hands full. I mean, our guys will be excited to play. This is senior night for us. This is our last home game. It was an opportunity for us to finish undefeated at home, which is a big deal to us. But all of that said, we know that it's going to take us focusing on our performance and playing a really good football game to beat a talented and capable opponent.
Everybody, I'm sure, is banged up by this time of the year, but how meaningful was it to have this off week in terms of your particular team? How much fresher do you think the guys will be this week?
Well, I feel really good about where we are in terms of our energy levels, physically how our team's doing. Obviously, you get long-term injuries as the year wears on, but coming out of the Auburn game, I thought, that was a physical game. That was a game that extended beyond 60 minutes. Guys like Eli Stowers in particular, I thought he made so many tough catches in the game. It was important to get him off his feet some and to let him recover. And then, we would pick and choose guys too that maybe have played a lot of snaps or have, the season's worn on them physically. We let them kind of work through individual periods, but we keep them out of contact, or, we have ways to modify practice to make sure we're taking care of them. All that serves an advantage for us as we, again, stare down the stretch run here. And I think we're really well positioned that way. Again, it's going to come down to playing good football. So I feel good about our energy systems. I feel good about the team spirit. I know these guys are excited. Can we go out? Can we execute? Can we get started the right way? Be ready before we begin. Those are the things that will play a huge role in us closing out the home schedule here against Kentucky.
I know this is now, it's water under the bridge, and you guys won the game. But I'm just curious from your standpoint, Clark. You guys had a tough decision. You said it after the game. Your defense picked you up. Your team picked you up because the decision ends up not working, where you have the fourth down. You go for it, trying to win the game on that possession, and you end up still finding a way to get it done in overtime. But in a decision like that, everybody who is watching the game, from the announcers to the fans to everybody, is debating. Should you go for it? Should you not go for it? This is what we love about football. Can you take us through how difficult of a decision was that for you, and who do you really lean on when you make that call?
Well, first of all, Willie, it sounds like you're being critical of me, and I don't know when you say everybody watching was questioning the.
No, I didn't say questioning. I said debating whether you should go or not.
No.
I was all right with it. I was all right with it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No, I'll tell you, like there are certain decisions that are hard. There are certain decisions that are easy. We had a 4th and 1 earlier in that drive that we went for and we converted. I mean, this was about Vanderbilt football taking control of the game and winning the game at the end. Now, I will always first reference the book. And the book games through all these different scenarios and gives you the best possible decision that aligns with what the analytics tells you. And 4th and 1 is kind of near and dear to my heart. And this is a conversation I have with the team, again, starting January 7th, is we want to be a program that when it comes to 4th and 1, we're leaving our offense on the field and we're going for it. And yet we don't want to be reckless. We're not risk averse. We don't want to be reckless. And I'll tell you, in that moment, the book supported the decision to go. And all that means is they've gamed through all the possible scenarios. You make a field goal, return possession 2-minute into game. You go for it and you make it. You go for it and you miss it and you get a return possession 2-minute into game. On and on and on and on. And what they're saying is your win probability is highest going for it. I will never solely depend upon that because there's an emotional element to this too. And there's really understanding the context of the game, even though these analytic guys will tell you that you've got to take the emotion out of it. I believe that you have to put yourself in the moment and know what's best for your team. And for me, I'm going to bet on us to get 1 yard. That's the first thing. So I'm putting the game in the player's hands. And I felt like the way the game was going, a return possession in that moment, after, taking a 3-point lead, I think it introduces winning for Auburn, and so I wanted to do the best we could to finish with the game with the ball in our hands. And so that was the decision. I didn't need to debate it very long. I think once we got to 1 yard, my biggest point of conflict right now in that moment was I felt like it looked to me like Diego had converted the down, and I wanted them to look at the spot. And so I was trying to figure that out, but I had already communicated to Tim that we were going. And, if you watch, Molly Hart is always right next to me, typically on game day, but the other person that's there is Ben Coughlin, and he helps me. He manages the book for us, and he helps me with all those scenarios, and he keeps me kind of in tune to what the analytics are saying for us to do. And then, look, we're in constant conversation about the go lines on 4th down and decisions that need to be made in critical moments. And that's a collaborative effort between what the book says and Ben's thoughts, obviously, my perspective in the moment. And then whether it's the offense on the field, which is typically the case, or the defense, we're referencing the coordinator too. Those things happen really quickly. So what we do is work a lot in preparation to make sure we've played through these scenarios and we're prepared for them. And that way we've kind of chunked this information in a way that allows us to get into the decision in the moment and let our guys go play. And in that case too, Willie, like, again, I felt really good about going for it. And I'll tell you, when you come up short, that's a lonely feeling on the sideline, man. Like, you feel like you're responsible. You feel like, you let the team down in the decision. But at the end of the day, I was betting on our players. Our defense stepped up, defended the return possession really well. And obviously we were able to close it out in overtime. And so, you live with it. I don't ever want to make decisions that are risk averse. I want to make sure that we aren't afraid in moments to bet on ourselves, because I think playing small and playing conservative are the fastest ways to get beat.
Vanderbilt head football coach Clark Lea has been our guest on D-Mace, Fingin and Donnick. He joins us every week during football season. The Commodores are back in action on Saturday, a 2:30 kickoff at home against Kentucky. Clark, thank you so much for your time. As always, good luck against the Wildcats this weekend.
Thanks, and listen to everyone out there. Now it's the last home game, so there's no reason. 2:30 on Saturday. Clear your schedules. Come support us. We'd love to have the Nashville community out checking us out, and hoping for a great finish this season. I appreciate being with you guys.
You heard the man. Be there at First Bank Stadium on Saturday, 2:30 p.m. kickoff.
What do you like to say, D Mace?
Be there, be square.
No.
or
Get your
get your, you know what?
get your you know what to the
get your hands in the seats, okay? That's what I'm saying. Now, Clark is right. Coach is right. It's the last home game. I'm gonna save it. You know what? I'm gonna save it for the other side.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna save it for the other side. I'm passionate now. Coach got me.
615-737-1025. We'll hear what Derek has to say. We'll react to what Clark had to say. We'll look ahead to the CFP rankings tonight. We'll do it all. You can react as well. 615-737-1025. Our show is presented by Bax Homeworks, remodeling done right. Get a free estimate now at baxhomeworks.com. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Before we went to break, Derek was about to start an impassioned plea. You heard from Clark Lea.
Yeah.
Last home game for the Commodores this season. Saturday afternoon, 2:30 kickoff at First Bank Stadium against Kentucky, because we know what's coming up next weekend. Let's get past this game first, but we know what's coming next weekend. Vanderbilt travels to Neyland Stadium to take on the Volunteers, and then we'll see what happens from there. But Derek, go for it.
See, Coach Lee said it the nice way. He was like, yeah, just make sure y'all are out there. This is the guys' last game. Let's go Vanderbilt. Let's go. Willie Vandy. That's what he's supposed to do. He's a head coach.
Politely
Yeah,
said,
politely.
Let's have a good atmosphere for this
let's
senior
make
night.
sure we support. But you know what? I'm his alter ego. This is what he really
You're the
wanted
anger
to, yeah.
translator.
This is what he really wanted to say. Vanderbilt fans, old, young, in the middle, it don't matter. Gen Z, millennial, Gen X, whatever.
Boomers.
Be your ass in your seats, okay? Be there to support these fellas. This is their last home game. You're talking about doing something unprecedented at the University of Vanderbilt, in particular the football team. To go a whole season without losing a home game. That is huge. You've never been a part of this iteration of the Vanderbilt football team. I understand you can't put it all together because so much is happening. But make sure that you are supporting those kids because it's about them. And some of them are grown. They're grown men too. Some of them are grown men. But either way, support these young men and that staff by showing up and making sure there are more Vanderbilt fans than Kentucky fans. Let's push those Kentucky fans out of the stadium. So if you got some seats, don't give them to a Kentucky fan. You be in them or you give them to a friend that's a Vandy fan, okay? But make sure you have that place rocking. SEC Nation to be there. Why ain't you going to be there? You better be there. I'm checking.
And the
checking.
atmospheres have been great.
And I know, but we got to keep it going.
And I think what you hope is you get a bigger percentage of your own fans. We know that's always going to be a thing. And if they can keep moving in this direction, I think they can keep grabbing a higher percentage. But beyond that, has there ever been, I don't know how many people can go back way, way back to the 50s or something like this. But look, this is hands down the most fun season they have ever had, even compared to James Franklin's teams that were surprisingly good and had some really nice wins. But come on, if there's ever a team that deserves recognition and appreciation for what they have done, not just this year, but even going back to last year. And this is a game you don't want to slip up and have a stumble. You want everything on the line next week in Knoxville, but you've got to take care of business. And Kentucky is playing a lot better. If you think Kentucky's just going to show up and lay down, Kentucky has trended very well compared to how they were playing in the first part of the season. It's not going to be a gimme. That needs to be a special environment on Saturday.
I know that Clark Lea is a football coach, and football coaches get angry. Football coaches get loud. Whenever I see him on the sideline on the broadcasts, getting into it with officials or rallying his team, I'm like, it seems out of character for Clark Lea because we talk to him every week and he's such a mild-mannered, nice person. And then I see him yelling. I'm like, that doesn't seem like Clark Lea to me. He can turn that switch on and off. It's pretty impressive.
It's a part of who he is. He knows
it's pretty impressive.
Turn it off and turn it on.
But if he needs an anger translator, a la Key and Peele, then we know that we can hire Derek Mason.
Be your butt in those seats. Listen, if you can't go, again, give him to someone that's a Vandy supporter so they can be in those seats. Because the last thing you want your players to see or the other team to see is the fan base not supporting them, even though they're doing extremely well. If Kentucky walks out and see a lot of their fans, they're going to feel like they're at home, and they're going to get some momentum from that. But if you swamp that thing with black and gold and it's you spots of blue and white here and there, that's the way it's supposed to be. You give your team, and I'm telling you, as a former player, you give your team a lot of energy when they look up and they see nothing but their fans.
Quickly, you heard the man. Quickly, before we get to Trevor Maddich, on the other side. Another CFP rankings reveal tonight. It's overkill. If you ask me, it doesn't have to happen every week. I know it's a different sport, but in college basketball, don't they only do it once near the end of the season? The committee
Maybe
unveils
twice.
the top
Maybe.
16 seeds, right?
Yeah.
They can't do the whole field of 68.
They don't do it every week. Yeah.
No,
Right.
they don't. But
they
Jerry,
only do it
The
maybe
16
once or
teams.
twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what is it? Jerry Donardo? Is it
Joe
Jo-
Lunardi.
Joe Donardi.
Who is
Yeah,
Jerry
he's Jerry. I put Jerry.
Jerry
in-
Donardi used to
yeah,
coach
exactly,
Vanderbilt's football team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but they give you updates. It seems like every week he
I don't know
gives
if we
you.
need,
He
but-
gives you the updates
but
of who's in.
but those are his projections.
But
Those
a
aren't
lot of
coming
that
straight
stuff-
from the committee.
I know, but if you look at it, a lot of his projections
Right.
are what they end up going with.
Understood. But I
So-
don't think you need to have a CFP ranking reveal every single week. Maybe every other week. I don't know. It gets ratings. That's all that matters. The one question I have going into the latest ranking reveal tonight is how far does Alabama fall after losing to Oklahoma? That's the question I have. How far did the Crimson Tide fall? We'll ask Trevor that because I'm curious for his response.
Yeah.
But that's the question I have.
Yeah, it's a good question, and doesn't really matter that much. I guess it does if you feel like establishing a spot and then not losing after that won't jumble things up too much. But yeah, it's unfortunate for where Vanderbilt sits, but there's all of this talk about, will there be 5? Will there be even 6 teams from the SEC that get in? But that is at the central part of it, right? Is how far does Alabama fall after losing to Oklahoma? Because some of these teams have put themselves in good position. They still have to win the last couple games. So there will be some curveballs thrown. Not everybody is going to be perfect and hold serve, right? There will be upsets. There always are. But I am coming around to the fact that it kind of does matter a little bit where they put you right now.
615-737-1025. Trevor Maddich, the newly christened BYU Athletic Hall of Famer, will join us coming up next. We'll congratulate Trevor on that distinction, and we'll get his thoughts on the college football playoff rankings as well as the Tennessee Titans. That is coming up next. 615-737-1025. Also, be listening in the next segment because at the end of the Trevor Maddich interview, I will be giving you the cue to call to win a 4-pack of tickets to see AEW, Dynamite, and Collision next Wednesday at the Pinnacle. So if you want those tickets, be listening at the end of the next segment for the cue to call. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Trevor Maddich, the newly christened BYU Athletic Hall of Famer. First off, Trevor, congratulations on that honor.
I appreciate that, Adam. I tell you what, it's awesome and it's humbling at the same time because I had a lot of great teammates. And a lot of those guys deserve to be there, and hopefully they will be inducted at some point. But it's really humbling to be in and with the people that were inducted. I mean, one of the inductees this year was Jack Morris, baseball pitcher.
Wow.
Jack Morris
Tigers
is already in, and a couple others. He's already in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And it took him another 4 or 5 years to get into the BYU Athletic Hall of Fame.
Wow.
But he pitched 10 shutout innings to win Game 7 of the World Series. And he's like a 4-time World Series champion. The guy's amazing. He was part of our class. So I'm just looking around going, wow, I'm very fortunate to be associated with this group of people.
Did I see, Trevor, that you flew from Provo to Bristol overnight to resume your duties as an ESPN analyst?
And boy, are my arms tired. Yeah.
That's dedication, my friend.
Yeah, the event was Friday night, and I jumped on a red eye, flew to Newark, and then drove on up and did 12-hour day, or not yesterday. It feels like yesterday on Saturday. But the thing is, the inductees were introduced at halftime that Saturday, this past Saturday, of the BYU TCU game. And because I couldn't be there, my wife Dana was introduced for me. And I think the crowd was much happier seeing her than they would ever have been seeing me. So, I came back and went to work. It's a blessing to have a job, and I appreciate it.
Well, we are so thrilled for you. Congratulations. Let's look ahead to the CFP rankings reveal tonight. And I'll ask you the same question I asked to Willie and Derek right before you came on. The biggest question I think I have when the rankings are revealed tonight is, how far does Alabama fall after losing at home to Oklahoma over the weekend? Where do you think the Crimson Tide fall tonight?
Well, AP has them at number 10. And I think that's probably about right, maybe even a little bit higher than that. I think they should be ahead of Notre Dame. AP has Notre Dame at number 9 right now. And the reason I think that is because of the teams that Alabama has beaten. And this is where they really are hanging their hat. Because when you look at other 2-loss teams, the teams that Bama has beaten have been terrific. I mean, all in a row, all in a string. They beat Georgia in Athens, Vandy, Missouri, Tennessee, and then they beat South Carolina, which almost beat A&M this last week, and LSU before they lost to Oklahoma last week. And so when you look at those quality wins, I think that they're in a great position to be the highest ranked 2-loss non-champs. And so I think Bama is in great shape. And if they drop to number 10, that's fine. Number 9 or even number 8, I think is more appropriate. But ultimately, you've got to be in the top 10 the way this season is shaking out in order to make the playoff in top 10 of the final ranking. Because remember that the top 5 highest ranked conference champions get an automatic berth no matter where they're ranked. And so right now, the group of 5 highest ranked conference champion will probably be somewhere in the 20s. And the ACC right now, the highest ranked team is Miami. They're at 15 last week. And Miami probably won't play for the conference championship. And so the conference champion for the ACC is likely to not be in the top 12 either in the final ranking. And so if you're 11 and 12 in the final ranking, thinking that you're doing good and you're safe, but you're in the 12-team playoff, no, you might not be, because it looks like 2 teams are going to jump up ahead. And so Alabama has got to be in the top 10 in order to feel comfortable.
Now, Trevor, there are several teams that are still, in the hunt when you're talking about the SEC. The one team I'm looking at is Texas, and we've all talked about Texas for numerous weeks because we knew ultimately it was going to come down to the last 3 games with Texas, and because Texas it's sort of this Vandy tie, because if Texas win or lose, do they get ahead of a 10-2 Vandy even though they beat them? But looking at how they lost against Georgia, is this week going to be critical for him where they're seated? Because they didn't just it wasn't a close game. Texas wasn't even in the same ballpark as Georgia this past weekend. But they got Arkansas left, and then obviously the big game is at Texas A&M. Can they still make it to the college football playoffs, even though they got beat by more than 2 touchdowns at Georgia?
They could, but it would be difficult. And it's not necessarily, Derek, because of that loss to Georgia. You're right. They did not look good against Georgia. They were flat out dominated. They had 23 yards rushing. 23 yards rushing. That means you were dominated, for goodness sake, especially on that side of the ball. And Texas has Arkansas and then Texas A&M to close out the season. And they've got to take care of business against Arkansas, and they've got to beat Texas A&M, and the more they beat them by, the better, in order to have a chance. Because as a 3-loss team, right now, you look at their best wins, they are Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. And Oklahoma played their starting quarterback just a few weeks after having surgery on the thumb of his throwing hand, and he came back too early and had no velocity, and his turnovers are how Texas won. So the committee will take that into account. It's not really the Georgia loss, I think, that could trip them up now. It's the Florida loss, because they lost the opener, remember, by 1 score against Ohio State. The committee is not going to hate that loss. The committee won't like the loss to Georgia, but if those were their only 2 losses, I think Texas would be in prime position for an at-large bid. It is that loss at Florida that is probably going to sink them, unless they have a super dominant win over Texas A&M to close out the regular season and they get some help up above. So that Florida loss is the one that got away.
Now, with that Texas A&M loss, had they not been able to come back against South Carolina, how would that have affected the college football rankings? Or it wouldn't have affected it at all because they're still a 1-loss team?
Which team are you referring
Texas
to?
A&M.
Oh, Texas A&M.
Yes.
Yeah, Texas A&M right now I think is flummoxing. And we'll learn a lot about the personality of the committee by what they do with A&M if they're an at-large team, where they rank them. A&M is still on track to win the SEC championship, which would give them an automatic berth. But I think they're very safe from a standpoint of making it as an at-large win team, even if they lose to Texas, because that would be their only loss of the season. The problem with A&M, though, is that from a standpoint of where you seed them, is that they've been so weird, especially on defense. I mean, statistically, their defense, for example, is one of the best in the country at pressuring and sacking the quarterback, one of the worst in the country at interceptions. They're not turning elite pressure into takeaways. Sometimes they are a brick wall against opposing offenses, and sometimes they'll give up a 60-yard touchdown, a 40-yard touchdown. It's like super weird. So not sure exactly what the committee is going to think about that, but I think ultimately the committee will say that with a win over Notre Dame, non-conference, and going undefeated in their SEC schedule until they finally lost in the rivalry game against Texas, A&M is going to be in great shape to possibly get a bye, even if they don't win the SEC.
Trevor, that has my wheels turning, because this is something we would never have considered before. But if they're sitting there at 11-0, and all they've got to do is beat Samford to do that, like you said, they could lose, and it probably wouldn't even matter what the score is, and they're going to get into the playoffs. Would it be crazy someday for a team? I'm not saying Texas A&M would do it this year, especially in a rivalry game like that, but would it be crazy for a team to do what an NFL team commonly does in that situation where you don't have to win? Rest guys?
You know, that's an interesting thought right there. I think we may see some of that, but I think that conference championships are still so vitally important to a program and to everybody associated with it, the fans, the boosters, everybody, the student body, that I don't think you'll see college programs resting players in anticipation of the playoffs if it might hurt them in terms of their conference championship possibilities. And so right now, A&M is the only team in the SEC that's undefeated. You've got 3 other teams that have 1 conference loss: Georgia, Ole Miss, and Alabama. And so if if A&M loses to Texas and picks up a conference loss, won't help Texas very much because Texas has 2 conference losses, so the tiebreaker doesn't come into play. But now there's going to be 4 teams with 1 conference loss if everybody else takes care of business and wins out, and you will have tiebreakers come into it, and A&M might not even play in the
Right.
SEC championship game. They'll still be in the playoff, but the conference championship is just absolutely enormous. And Nick Saban has said in the past multiple times that it's actually harder to win an SEC championship than a national championship.
And that's another debate, is playing the extra game, the conference championship. But we know, like you said, you're weighing that with the prestige of winning a conference championship. I got another one for you, philosophical, Trevor, and this has to do maybe with the perspective of the plight of Vanderbilt. And again, they've got to win the 2 games before this even becomes relevant. But right now, they're looking at a situation where they could win the last 2 games, be 10-2 in the SEC, and be on the outside looking in just because of the depth of the league and the way everything is, it could fall. But one of the knocks against them is, well, they beat some teams that were ranked at the time, but a lot of those teams have fallen out of the rankings or are lower in the rankings. I think Missouri might be a fringe top 25 now. But let's take the LSU game. How do you feel philosophically about beating a team that at the time, it's a huge game, it's a top 10 team, but they crumble afterwards? So what's the value of a win like that?
Well, the thing about Vandy is, like you said, William, it's an important consideration, is that the committee is going to look at who you lost to and how and where, and who you beat and how and where. Nick Saban has been really preaching hard over the last several years that the committee has not taken into account enough the quality wins that you have. They're only looking at your losses. And that's where you get an Alabama team that's got 2 losses, but they've got tremendous quality wins, including over Vandy. And if you look at Vandy, you know, they lost to the 2 best teams they played, at Alabama, at Texas. Okay. So the committee won't hate that. But then the committee will say, who's your best win? Well, LSU was ranked at the time they played them 10th in the nation, according to the AP, but they've since fallen completely away. Missouri was 15th in the nation, but they've since fallen away. They've had some injuries, and the committee will take that into account as well. Those are the only 2 teams that were ranked at the time they played them, with the exception of the teams that they lost to, that they beat. And so now those losses, some of the
South Carolina, way back at the beginning, of course, you know.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's on the road,
Right,
but we
that.
know what happened there, or to South Carolina
Yeah,
since.
Yes, South Carolina, you're right about that. South Carolina was 11th in the nation when they beat them there. But then the committee will look at, okay, so how did it turn out? How did it all turn out? Because the committee didn't have those teams ranked. This was before the committee's rankings came out. So the committee says, well, how about our rankings right now? And Missouri will be the only one that's likely to be in there. So the problem Vandy has is being in competition with other 2-loss teams to get an at-large berth. They will have to compare not just quality losses, because Vandy probably has the 2 best losses of any of the 2-loss teams, but also who did you beat? And so that's why the Kentucky game is important for Vandy to look dominant, but at Tennessee is also important. You know, last week, Tennessee, I think, was ranked 23rd, something like that. They're likely to fall out of the committee's rankings if Vandy's able to beat them, but that still, I think, would be seen as a quality win. And that's critical for them. And then they need a little bit of help, you know. So Vandy's in good shape right now, but they're not in great shape because some of the teams that they've beaten have not taken care of their business.
Give us a quick thought on James Franklin to Virginia Tech. Do you think that's a good fit?
Yeah, I think it's a great fit. He was very good at making Penn State very good. But the problem is that Penn State then raised the standard to where you need to be elite. And if you're not Ohio State or Georgia or Nick Saban's Alabama, well, that's not good enough here, and bye-bye, you're gone. And he's shown, though, that he can build a program at Vandy and at Penn State. You know, great culture, great direction, great leadership. You'll be proud of the way they handle themselves. All that stuff is good. All that stuff would be a huge elevation for Virginia Tech the way they are now. And the lessons learned at Penn State, I think, will help him at Virginia Tech. And that is that what really put a ceiling on his ability to make it an elite program was quarterback play and receivers. So let's just talk about quarterbacks. At times they've been good, sometimes very good at quarterback, but I can't think of when they've been elite at quarterback under James Franklin. And that has put a ceiling over what they were able to accomplish there, and ultimately led to people being frustrated with him enough that they fired him. Well, what's he going to do at Virginia Tech? He's going to go out and spend a whole big rip-roaring fortune to make sure that he gets the best quarterbacks he can possibly get in the transfer portal and pay him in NIL. And if he does that, he has everything else that any national championship coach has.
Trevor Matich has been our guest on D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick. He joins us every Tuesday, and he is brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, once again, congratulations on your induction into the BYU Athletic Hall of Fame. Great stuff as always. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, guys.
615-737-1025. We will get back into the Titans coming up next. And I've had the song Ironic by Alanis Morissette stuck in my head. And I'll explain why as it relates to the Tennessee Titans. Coming up next. But before we get there, I told you we have a giveaway. If you want a 4-pack of tickets to AEW Dynamite and Collision, that's 2 shows in one, next Wednesday, November 26th at the Pinnacle downtown, be caller number 4 at 615-737-1025. Caller number 4 will win a 4-pack of tickets to AEW Dynamite and Collision at the Pinnacle next Wednesday, November 26th. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, 1025 The Game. D Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Normally, Tuesdays at 5 p.m., we talk to Predators GM Barry Trotz. But as we understand it, Barry Trotz is still in Europe. He did not come back with the team from Stockholm, Sweden. So we will not be joined by Barry Trotz at 5 o'clock today, obviously. We will be joined by Barry Trotz at 4 p.m. on Thursday. So Barry Trotz will join us at 4 p.m. Thursday instead of right now. The Predators return to practice tomorrow after having the past couple of days off. But we will catch up with Barry Trotz on Thursday at 4. So before the break, I said that I've had the song Ironic by Alanis Morissette stuck in my head. And the funny thing about that song is many critics have pointed out that Ironic, the song, isn't actually ironic. That's a different discussion. We don't have
Meaning it doesn't fit the definition.
right.
Some of her
examples,
analogies,
yes, are not actually examples of
Some of
irony.
them have to be, right? She makes a lot of.
Well, I can
examples.
scrap the rundown for the 5 o'clock hour.
And we can go
No,
to
no,
and
it.
we
do a
can go
song
through
analysis.
line by line. Is
That's
this
what
irony?
the people want.
Is this
That's what the
irony?
people want. Yes.
But I was singing the song earlier, and I'm not going to actually sing because then all of you would turn the channel. But I was thinking to myself, as it relates to the Tennessee Titans, a traffic jam when you're already late, having the number 1 pick, but none of the quarterbacks are great.
Okay.
And the reason why I bring that up, because the Tennessee Titans are in position once again to have the number 1 overall pick. Let's fire up my favorite website, tankathon.com. And there they are, the Tennessee Titans, number 1 overall. And if they keep losing, nobody's going to stop them because they're the only team in the NFL with just 1 win. But I've read a couple of stories over the past couple of weeks talking about the lackluster 2026 quarterback class. Jeff Howe of The Athletic wrote such an article a couple of days ago, talking to league executives about the upcoming quarterback class, which includes Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson, maybe Lenora Sellers, other quarterbacks. And here are just 2 of the quotes from these unnamed executives in Jeff Howe's story. Quote from one executive: "Nobody is playing the position well enough to be like, that dude can take over my franchise." Second executive: "I don't love any of the quarterbacks right now. We're trying to grasp onto somebody because there isn't anybody, and it's such a flavor of the week. Good luck right now." So it concerns me a little bit because after the Titans reportedly passed on the New York Giants offer for the number 1 overall pick in the past draft to take Cam Ward, I think a lot of us are hoping that this time around, because the Titans theoretically have their quarterback, that they will trade down and collect all of the assets and start building up their team that way. But if the quarterback class is as lackluster as it sounds, and I can't think of any other non-quarterbacks off the top of my head who are that good, who would compel a team to trade up. You guys can chime in if I'm forgetting somebody. Like it kind of worries me a little bit because look, ultimately somebody will probably pay up, but there's not that surefire. This player absolutely is the number 1 overall pick. And if we don't have the number 1 overall pick, we will move heaven and earth to get the number 1 overall pick. So it puts the Titans at the moment in a disadvantageous position.
I read that article and D Mace was thinking, oh boy, because, and I think we could sense it just the way the college season has come away. We're not every week going, wow, can you imagine this quarterback in the NFL next year? You were hoping, and you know where I sat the day after the draft, but you were thinking maybe if it works, the Titans could get a mulligan and you could have a do-over and you still end up net with a quarterback you like and a boatload of picks like they got in 2016 when John Robinson had Marcus Mariota and then wheeled the first pick the next year and got a lot of stuff, including Derrick Henry out of that with the picks that he got. Jack Conklin, among others. but it does seem like it might be a weaker position. Couple of things, though. Somebody always seems to move up the board, right? Somebody will fall in love with somebody on that list. I think now there's kind of, I don't know. But when it gets around to the draft and a team is like, boy, I really need a quarterback, you have to hope that somebody gravitates, because most years that is kind of what happens. They gravitate up. Let's also keep this in mind. The Titans still play the Browns and the Saints before the year's over. They could play the Browns with Shedeur Sanders, theoretically, hypothetically, the only healthy quarterback they have. I don't know. I don't know who could be quarterbacking the Browns in that game. The Titans might win a couple where this is not going to be a thing. But that is something to watch for sure. And I think even if you pick third, if it's a loaded draft with a lot of quarterbacks and you don't need a quarterback, you can still wheel and deal. But it may not fall right for them.
I mean, right now, has there been a quarterback that has shown himself to be that guy, or that elite guy in this draft? Not based on what they were talking about at the beginning of the season. They had all these Heisman trophies and all these quarterbacks up there, and Arch Manning led the pack. So
Garrett Nussmeier,
all these
Lenore
guys,
Sellers,
that
Drew Aller, they were all up there.
Supposed to be
Drew Aller.
top NFL prospects, and it just hadn't worked out. But you have seen other guys, Mendoza, Simpson, guys like that have put themselves in that space of guys that can really help themselves become the number one pick as the season continues to go on. And then once you get into these individual meetings and workouts and stuff like that. So whereas there may not be one right now, but somebody will, whether it's talking themselves into it, because I think ultimately, it's okay. I see the individual's traits, and I see his performance, and do I believe that what I'm seeing will manifest itself at the pro game? If I think that is the case, just like the Titans, then there's going to be a team that, right now nobody thinks, but what if Ty Simpson has a great workout and he shows you all these throws, of Mendoza, and they show you all these throws in these drills and these pro days, and they interview well.
Yeah, a lot can happen.
A lot can happen. And then now you went from, well, there's not a clear-cut number one quarterback to, oh man, this guy is the clear-cut number one, and he may just end up being the number one pick because he's risen that high. There's going to be a team that's willing to move up to that space to get a quarterback. Why? Because everybody needs a quarterback. We can say he ain't worth it or whatever you want to say, but in this league, it's like we'll do anything for a quarterback. We'll do whatever what you want. If we believe that's the guy, what you want? All right, I guess I have to give it up. If I believe that's the guy.
You saw what Jacksonville did for Travis Hunter.
It's just like,
Not
Dad,
even a
give it
quarterback.
up.
Just for kicks and giggles, I have pulled up Mel Kiper's latest big board, and man, is it way too early to be looking at these things. But just
Mark it down. November 18th.
Oh, God.
Our first reference to Mel Kiper.
oh no.
Oh, no.
Uh-huh.
But for the
It's
purpose,
a dismal time.
yes. But for the purpose of the conversation, I pulled up his big board from last week, and here are his top 5 prospects as of last week. As we're having this conversation, he has Dante Moore, the quarterback out of Oregon, number 1. Wow. Followed by Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana, at 2. Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame, at 3. Arvell Reese, the linebacker out of Ohio State, at 4. And Ty Simpson at 5.
So he has that many quarterbacks in the top 5.
He has 5 quarterbacks in his top 5 prospects.
4.
3 quarterbacks, a running back, and a linebacker.
Okay.
And it only takes one team to fall in love with that quarterback and say, you know what? Or it takes 2 teams, really, because you got to get a bidding war.
Right.
And so it takes 2. And
So you almost want
yeah,
one to separate
exactly.
from the other 2 or 3. So a
Absolutely.
team doesn't go, well, we can settle for, I'll take Vingen at 4 rather than trade up for D-Mace at 1.
But don't you think that the way we are talking about the Tennessee Titans, and listen, some people may look at it and say, no, that's not enough. So say if they do get the number 1 pick, and say, I don't know, the Saints, they want the number 1 pick and they end up being 3rd on the list. So what if the Titans say, well, we'll swap picks, which you just, give us yours and give us a second rounder, and then, a second rounder the next following year. Some people may not think that's enough, but I think you have to explore that, because it's not like you're moving out of the top 5. You're moving 2 spaces down, but you're adding on 2 second-round picks. So it may not garner what it would garner if he was a flat-out number 1 overall pick. But a team like the Titans, they need anything they can get. Like, if you're giving me two second-round picks and we're just swapping from 1 to 3, then give it to me.
For context, Willie brought up the Travis Hunter trade, which, by the way, at the moment, yikes. But the Jaguars,
Short term and long term, you're
True.
kind of saying, what did they do here?
the Jaguars moved up from 5 to 2. So for the Browns to move down 3 spots, the Browns received the 5th pick, a second-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and a first-round pick.
The
To move
next
3
year's
spots,
first, right?
yes. So they got the 5th pick. They just moved down 3 spots. They also picked up a first-round pick in this draft, plus a second-round pick and a 4th-round pick.
That looks like a advantage to the Browns.
Yeah.
In a big way. And it's, as we've documented many times, the Titans could have done something similar and ended up with a very good player at 2 or 3, whatever. 3, I guess, and then been in this position again to have a lot of goods coming into this draft. At some point, you do have to get the quarterback. That's the tricky part of it. So look, we're just looking ahead. There's a lot that's going to transpire between now and April when this actually comes to fruition. But I think it is worth tracking to see what's in the cards, because it does not look obvious that this would be a great year to have the first pick.
Last week, Willie, Derek and I talked about this story written by Pete Thamel of ESPN.com. He did a poll before the college football season of scouts and executives on who the first quarterback to be taken in the draft, who they thought it would be at the beginning of the season. Then he did it again a couple of weeks ago. In the latest poll, Mendoza received 13 votes, followed by Dante Moore with 6 and Ty Simpson with 3. When he did this exercise at the beginning of the season, Lenore Sellers had the most votes with 8, followed by Garrett Nussmeier with 7. Carson Beck received 3, John Mateer received 3, Drew Aller received 2, Sam Levitt of Arizona State received 1, and Arch Manning received 1.
Now, that is a great illustration of how quickly it can change and how drastically it can change. Mendoza is an interesting one because Mendoza was not the quarterback for Indiana last year, right?
No, he wasn't.
No.
So
he was at Cal, I think.
So Mendoza has gone to a new school. He's quarterbacking a program that does not have a history of success.
Curtis Rourke was the quarterback for Indiana last season.
Right. So here's a guy that stock is rising. Now let's take it a step further. Right now, people are like, Mendoza, intriguing. Could end up a Heisman guy, right? If they finish out strong. And then think about if he could have some dramatic success in a playoff. If you did that same article that we just read of the scouts saying, I don't like any of them, how drastically could Mendoza change, for example? I don't know, because I always ask myself this question. You can talk yourself into a lot of things, but truly, though, how you evaluate a guy week to week now, the guy's not going to become a different guy in April, right? He can have a successful run or an unsuccessful run. His stock is going to rise and fall. But if you're truly scouting and watching a guy's tools, don't you kind of know what kind of prospect he is right now as we speak? Like, I wonder about that.
It shouldn't I know what you're saying, because it shouldn't be that much of a sort of sway in
Yeah.
a guy going from being, number 1 to not number 8 or something like that. If you're watching him, it's like
one game or two games
one game
shouldn't sway you that
it
much.
shouldn't sway you that much, especially if he's for the most part consistent at what he's doing. That's an interesting, sort of view um eh, on how, like, what are they really and truly looking at? Like, okay, you saw these quarterbacks last year, and you based your rankings off the things you saw last year, and this guy was number 1, and he hadn't played bad, but he hadn't played great either. So how do you then adjust that? Because everything changes. Like, the people around him changes. We know, just colleges like the NFL, rosters change every year. And I may be throwing to one guy 1 year, or throwing to him for 2 years in a row, and then all of a sudden now they usher in 2 guys that I've never thrown to. So that does affect, maybe my output for the next season. So I wonder, how are they sort of evaluating this? How can they say, well, this guy was number 8 and he's still having a good season, but now he jumps to number 5 or number 2, and the other guys really hadn't, fell off at all, really,
Here's a passage
other
from
than Nessmeyer.
Here's a passage from that story by Jeff Howe about Fernando Mendoza. And I feel like you can copy and paste Cam Ward's name wherever it says Mendoza in the blurb I'm about to read. Quote, Mendoza has high character, and a couple of executives gushed over his passion for the game and drive to get better. He doesn't strike evaluators as a quarterback who can take over a game, but that tier of prospect doesn't currently exist in this class. His pre-draft interviews will be important because of his rigid, almost robotic personality and quiet leadership style. That might get picked apart during draft season, but no one called it a red flag. Quote, if people are caught up on that, an executive said, they're getting caught up on the wrong things.
Well, we know how Shedeur Sanders seemed like he flunked the interview process, right? His stock went down. So the interview process is significant. I think, right? Wouldn't we say?
Very, very significant.
But
so
go ahead.
No. So I mean, a lot of this, again, I think a lot of this stuff, can and will change when you're talking about these quarterbacks and how they're viewed once, teams are on the clock.
Like, would we have said Cam Ward would have been the first pick in the draft at the end of the regular season last year? His team missed the playoffs. They lost the game late in the year. He went to a bowl game. He sat out, the second half of the bowl game or something. At that moment, I wasn't thinking, here's the first pick in the draft. But
no,
they fell in love with him.
Yeah.
So somebody is probably going to fall in love with somebody. But getting back to your Alanis Morissette, wouldn't it be
ironic?
I don't know is it ironic or is it just flat out sad if you have the first pick?
Yes,
and it's a year where nobody wants the first pick. Come on.
Well, then you draft the best player available. You
As
draft
I
the
said,
best player available.
A traffic jam when you're already late. You have the number 1 overall pick, but none of the quarterbacks are great.
Yeah,
Isn't it ironic?
You don't need a quarterback.
Don't you
but
think?
It's not even that. I think they need someone, because the Titans, they have holes everywhere. They need someone really wants. Like, they need one individual, whether it's better if it's a quarterback, I get it, but they need an individual that just stands out, that teams are willing to move up to try to get him. And again, it may not get you what a quarterback would have given you at that number 1 pick, but I think it would give you something to justify making a move. Because again, if you feel the player you're looking at, you can get him at 3, and number 3 wants to move up to number 1 and take him, then that's what you do. And you get the compensation, and hopefully it's sort of around what Jacksonville had to give up, 2 second rounders and possibly a first rounder. So it only takes one team, but then, hopefully it's a quarterback, but even if it's just a player, a DN or linebacker or corner or receiver, if you want him bad enough and you want to move up, then okay.
615-737-1025. We will take your reaction to the apparently lackluster 2026 quarterback class and how that could affect the Titans if they end up with the number 1 overall pick. We will not be taking reaction on my singing. So please don't call in or text in and tell me how bad my singing is.
But
I
can
already
anybody
know.
weigh in and give us is there an English professor listening that can tell us whether the song Isn't It Ironic by Alanis Morissette is actually ironic?
We will take that as well.
I would like to know just for my own personal stuff. That was a big album back in the day.
It
right?
was.
Yeah.
Jagged Little Pill. Great album. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your reaction next. We are presented by Bax Homeworks, which transforms kitchens, bathrooms, and living spaces into places you can't wait to come home to. Get a free estimate now at baxhomeworks.com. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. That's the good stuff right there. We've talked Alanis Morissette. We've talked Shania Twain. We're covering all of the genres.
We're going
today.
back to the 90s.
Yes, absolutely.
And early 2000s.
Yes,
Jagged Little Pill was what, 94, 95?
mid-90s.
Yeah. But, you know, I can see where you're going with that. Now, I was an English minor. Not that I got great grades in those, but I did do a certain amount of reading and writing.
Rocks for jocks.
Well, definitely Rocks for Jocks. Definitely took that. But Rain on Your Wedding Day, it's more like a tough break, right? That's not straight irony, right?
Yes.
I mean, Alanis knows this. She's a smart person.
It worked out okay.
Why am I
for
just
her.
talking about this in 2025?
I don't know. But now it's a Broadway
Because you
musical.
just
Like it
realized
wasn't debate. We weren't debating this back at
I
the
mean,
time.
you didn't need to.
We just
You didn't
went
want
with
to debate it. You
Yeah.
wasn't You weren't listening to it.
Right. I
to
didn't want to
debate
talk
it. Yeah,
English. I had graduated,
exactly.
man. I'm
Yeah,
done with school.
Exactly, man.
So it's a good song.
You
Just
didn't want
put
to
it on.
send
Yeah.
yourself back through it again. Another semester of English.
Let's go to Dustin in Hopkinsville on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Dustin, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
It's like rain on your wedding day. It's a free ride. but
Not
you've
bad.
Already paid.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's good. Okay.
My ears aren't ringing.
So, y'all remember how Cam Ward and really all these quarterbacks really weren't being talked about in the off season, and it was like overnight, Cam Ward just blew up. It was like the Titans. We know everybody's going to take him, so I really have no worry. There's going to be at least 2 dumb teams, if not 5. I mean, you've always got the Browns. The Jets just sent Justin Fields for Tyrod Taylor. They're looking for their due. They're coming in hot. Like
It reeks of desperation,
Yes,
right?
please give us some picks.
it really does. And I hate it for Justin Fields. I mean, I like the kid, but I mean, it's just not for him. He
And it
doesn't
is
really have
sad.
weapons, he's not a weapon.
I think you and I were both on the same page, D-Mace.
Yeah.
We were intrigued
Thank you for the call, Dustin.
with
Thank you.
Justin Fields, new spot, a
Exactly.
year older,
It just
not
hadn't
too
worked.
expensive. Thought it might.
He just
Go
may
better.
be, he just may be a career backup. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. You're still in the league. You still, you find yourself on the championship team somehow, some way. But also let's think about this, because listen, no matter who, if a team can convince themselves of drafting having to move up to that number 1 spot and drafting a quarterback, listen, that will more than likely, based on the history of the league, that more than likely will happen. Some team will convince themselves to want to move up because they scared somebody else is going to get the quarterback, so they move up to number 1. And we know that just because, they may have you not ranked now or at the beginning of the season, or they have you ranked highly, that it doesn't, you can have some games that then will catapult you, especially the last 2 or 3 games of the season that some of these quarterbacks have, that will catapult them into that number 1 spot. Just think if Mendoza goes out, leads his team to a championship, and then have one of those games, he automatically now vote himself up to the number 1 pick. Listen, let's not make like this is like we haven't seen this before. Joe Burrow wasn't picked to be the number 1 pick at the beginning of the season. He just wasn't. He was a top quarterback, maybe a top 10 quarterback, but no one said Joe Burrow will be the top pick. Why? Because LSU didn't do good the previous year. They didn't have one of those seasons that they had the year that he blew up, and he deserved the number 1 pick. But what I'm saying is that let the whole season play out, and just maybe at the end of it, there will be 2-3 teams that are vying after the interviews and the combine workout or the pro days. There may be a few teams that are eager to move up to get a quarterback. Again, as the more you saw Joe Burrow play, you knew, okay, this was going to be the dude. And he capped it by the championship game, and everybody knew that he was going to be the number 1 guy. It may end up, like I said, last 2 or 3 games of the season, one of these quarterbacks, Mendoza, Ty Smith, one of them, the kid out of Oregon, they may solidify themselves by the way they play, that they are the number 1 pick in the draft.
One texter says, Cam Ward isn't it? Horrible pick. And
Okay.
it doesn't have a ton to do with the conversation,
Yeah.
but I do want to take this moment to discuss something. And I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. And this isn't just a Cam Ward thing. This is a life thing. Why are we so quick to make declarative statements? Why do we have to make declarative statements on everything as quickly as we can? Now, I do want to emphasize this. This is not necessarily a defense of Cam Ward. Cam Ward has struggled this season. He is disappointed. There's a lot to nitpick about Cam Ward's performance this season. I am not defending his performance. But the one thing that I have a hard time wrapping my head around in our world, especially in the sports world, in the sports talk world, in the sports journalism world, is why do we have to be so quick that after 10 games, we have to say right now, he isn't it. He isn't it. Why can't we have a more nuanced conversation about Cam Ward's struggles without having to say, sucks, he sucks, his record is terrible, his analytics are terrible, his traditional numbers are terrible, he has not gotten off to a great start in his NFL career? I cannot defend that. I am not going to defend that. But just the quickness in which people have to say, sucks, like, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. But if you don't say that, then people think you're soft. Like, I don't know.
No,
it's something I've been thinking about.
It's you try to give the person an opportunity, especially, depending on where you're picked. And unfortunately, that's just the nature of it. Guys that are picked higher tend to get more chances, and especially if you're the number one pick. And every number one pick isn't created equal. Some guys take a little bit longer than others. But I think we are in a space where if you don't show it to me right now, then you're a bust, you're a bum. And I think those words, people tend to use because they really hadn't sat down and evaluated the guy. And they're just going by what they heard, or they looked at a stat and say, oh, he's just. And with the quarterback position, it's a lot more nuance to it. It truly is. And even the people that know it, they're not always right. That's why I think that's why organizations tend to give, especially quarterbacks, benefit of the doubt. One, they know how hard the position is. And they know, because of the world we live in, even though you want it now, the likelihood of you getting it now is very slim. So instead of getting rid of the quarterback, we get rid of the head coach, and hopefully he can work him through that, because I'm giving him every opportunity to show us he's not the guy rather than showing us, anything else. Because if they see glimpses, that's what they're going to hold on to. And again, in their minds, yes, I drafted him number one overall, or whoever number one overall. I just need him to be my franchise quarterback. That's all I need him to be. Just be my franchise quarterback. And if you are a good franchise, you will surround that quarterback with individuals that will help him achieve what you want to achieve. Because every Super Bowl winning quarterback are not elite quarterbacks. Some are, some aren't. Some get put in perfect situations. Some have a few years and all of a sudden they fall off. It just depends. But I think people, for them, it's, I'm going to label him a bust right now. Or I'm going to label him, oh, he's the guy. Because you don't want to take the time out to sit and wait on it. While waiting on it, evaluate it. Like, okay, some weeks he's good. Some weeks he's been bad. But that doesn't tell a whole story of who he is, because it's so early in his career.
Well, let's just look. We did all of our research. We spent half of August doing these types of exercises with the changing of the coaches and, the things that end up hamstringing a quarterback and making it hard for him to reach what you think his potential is. But at the same time, just looking at a couple of guys who were first picks in the draft. We talked a lot earlier in our show today about Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
The the first pick in the draft sometimes is a quarterback that doesn't light up all of the lights of here are all the prototypical things that you want in the first pick in the draft, a superstar ceiling. And I have to say, in terms of declarative statements, it never means that the guy can't turn out to be a really good player. But I have always been a little bit underwhelmed with Cam Ward's physical gifts. Like, I think what if you were to name D Mace his best strengths, I think you're going more towards work ethic, competitiveness. I mean, the guy really wants to be good. He's going to study. He's going to bust it. But he has flaws physically.
Of course, like
right?
I mean, his flaw physically, I think, are flaws that as he
Just like Bryce Young is
No,
5'10".
Yeah, but Cam Ward's 6'2", 6'1".
Yeah.
So that's not his flaw, his height, because
Right.
these quarterbacks are 6'1", 6'2", 6'3". They don't consider that a flaw. Would they want him to be 6'5"? Of course, because your offensive linemen are 6'3", 6'4", and higher. But I think his flaws with a whole NFL offseason, that's why it's like, okay, yes, these guys, whoever it is, yes, they've struggled their first year. But I know how it is as a player. And that first year, you're doing nothing but preparing for drills. That's all, preparing for drills and interviews. You're not working the way you need to work to be an NFL player. So that first year is a blur, and there's still a lot of things you need to learn. It's that second year when you've had a full year of NFL working out, like the strength coach and getting your body ready for an NFL season. That's when you will start to truly see some of those things that he's deficient at, whether it be moving in the pocket. It doesn't seem like he has a true strong lower body. Those things he will work on in the offseason, and they will get better, I believe. Well, I hope.
One quick point, Adam, but let's look at another example. Trevor Lawrence. He did have all of the physical gifts that everybody was in agreement of. This guy's got it all. He's still a below average quarterback in the league. So it's not easy.
My point is that you can't watch the games and not see that Cam Ward is struggling. And I know that there are certain limitations with the roster, all of that. But in isolation, Cam Ward has certainly struggled. I think that. I have concerns about Cam Ward. But pardon me if I am not ready to label him a bust after 10 games. And some of you may be thinking, well, there goes Adam simping for Cam. I try to think of things more nuanced than saying, this guy sucks, this guy sucks. That's just how I am. I in my everyday life, that's just how I am. I try to think of things a little bit more. I don't know. That's my point. 615-737-1025. Hold that thought. 615-737-1025. We will take your reaction. We'll wrap up the show next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
All right, let's tell you about Loan Pronto. Right now, they've got the lowest rates in 3 years that they're delivering. So you can just get a better mortgage rate. It's worth refining if you got stuck with a high mortgage rate. So that's something you need to take note of right now, because you could be saving hundreds of dollars a month, sometimes in the thousands, depending on what you got stuck with. But also, if you need money out of your home's equity, Loan Pronto has that program as well. The Rapid Equity Loan. You can get money and you can get it fast. And when you refi, you get a better mortgage rate and you can skip your next 2 house payments. So all of these things are things you should be considering if you haven't listened to me before. And they're a great sponsor of our show. Loan Pronto has helped a lot of people. There's no wait, no hard credit pull up front. It's a streamlined process. You probably won't even need an appraisal. So call right now at Loan Pronto and see how much you can get, see how much you can save. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781. On approved credit, visit NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Derek Mason focused on his Spartans playing in the Champions Classic as we speak against the Kentucky Wildcats at Madison Square Garden. That's the appetizer. Of course, the main course comes up right after this one. Kansas and Duke right after this.
No, this is the
the appetizer.
This is the main course.
Duke
right
is
here.
in the main event, of course, at Madison Square Garden. But we'll see what happens. Always good to watch the Champions Classic.
Gosh, come on. Can't live in
Quality
that by
ball.
3-pointing.
Let's go to Wes from Hermitage on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Wes, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
What's up, guys? Willie, I'm glad you're here today, man. I have a question about the press, and I don't mean this to be mean, and I know it's going to come off as mean, but I'm just looking at things from a different angle. So this is how I'm going to present this question. Adam, I want you to just pretend for a second that you are Chase McCabe and you are about to hire the next guy to come onto the station.
Okay.
And you have fallen in love with this guy. You think he's going to be great. And you ask him, you said, hey, I want you to be successful on this station. What do you need from me in order to be successful? And the guy looks at you and says, well, I need a microphone. I need something to take notes on. And I need a laptop. And you said, all right, perfect. And you went out and you got one of those karaoke microphones off of Amazon. And then you ordered a children's tablet off of Amazon. And then you went and you got an Etch-a-Sketch for him to take notes on. Now, all three of those things roughly do about the same thing. When you come to look at his stats after being there for a year, year and a half, are you going to be upset with him that he did not deliver like you thought he did? Or are you going to take a look at the mirror and say, you know what, maybe I didn't set this guy up for success? And the reason why I say that is because Andrew Burnett has a fast system. He plays fast. He doesn't want to play defense. He wants to keep the puck at all times, which means you've got to have young and fast skaters. I don't think Barry Trotz set him up for success. And now we're upset with Andrew Burnett because he can't get his scheme to work with the players that Barry gave him. So I'm just curious, am I off crazy here or what? Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the call, Wes. It's an interesting question and one that we're going to tackle at some point this week. Barry Trotz did not join our program today. He is scheduled to join our program Thursday at 4 o'clock. The Predators are back at practice tomorrow morning. I'm assuming Andrew Burnett will be leading that practice. But Willie, why don't you take a stab at answering Wes's question?
I think it's a very good question. And not that anybody's intentionally, doing what he's saying. Like, you're not intentionally putting him in that position. But I do think Andrew Burnett, and this is always how it works, right? The head coach always takes more heat than the GM. And I think, and out of a related question, because I think he's asking a good question that I don't know that if there's a clear answer, because my related question to you was, because we're going to, like you said, we're going to tackle this week on Preds Insiders. We'll touch on it during the show. We've got Barry Trotz coming on at 4 on Thursday while you have this break in the schedule and you're evaluating where you are after a quarter of a season. But I think Barry Trotz would tell you that they overachieved 2 years ago, and had they tried to play the same way, maybe made different moves, yeah, maybe it could have been better, but was there just inevitable regression with some guys? And the young players that he's really counting on in the next 3 to 5 years, the nucleus of players that he's really building on for the next core, because he knew when he took over there was going to need to be a new core with a reasonable amount of time, that they could end up being, they could be in the same spot anyway. Like if they hadn't splurged on Marchessault, Shea, and Stamkos, which is where a lot of the attention is, just those 3 guys, right? But there's a lot of other moves that they've made. So I think it's a valid question to ask while you're self-evaluating here. And I think it's also a valid question to ask, did they just overachieve so much 2 years ago that we were overlooking the fact that this was probably going to happen in some form anyway, no matter what they did?
One texter says a proctologist should not be performing brain surgery. Trotz is the proctologist in this situation. Brain surgery would be managing an NHL franchise in this scenario. And to Wes's point, Burnett is catching a lot of the flack because he's the coach, and it's much easier to fire a coach than it is to fire a general manager. And we're going to tackle this.
And he did have to change the way that he philosophically would like to coach his team, right? And good coaches, great coaches, can adjust to the personnel that they have, which is what he's tried to do. And as we pointed out, analytically, he's put them in a better position this year than he did last year. It still doesn't look like it did 2 years ago when they were playing more up-tempo and doing it successfully, and probably had a team that was better fit for that style.
And we're going to dive more into this tomorrow. Willie and I will be hosting Preds Insiders. We'll talk about it on the show here as well. But let's say the Predators found themselves in the same position that they are in right now, but they didn't sign Steven Stamkos. They didn't sign Jonathan Marchessault. They did not sign Brady Shea. I think Predators fans would probably say, well, hey, this is the direction the team was probably supposed to go in. But those signings in particular put a lot of pressure on the Predators to perform, and they absolutely haven't. And look, we don't have enough time to get into it now.
But you could argue that those 3 guys and maybe it's impossible to know at the time that you sign them, but they did not fit with the way that the team had played the year before, stylistically.
Mm-hmm.
And the other problem that they couldn't get around was that they had a weakness at center that they overcame 2 years ago, that they have had a lot more trouble overcoming last year and this year. Right? You can't get around that. They're just Fedor Svechkov is a guy that they really hope will turn into a good player still today. But he's been ineffective. He just hasn't taken the step. He's being asked to do a lot, and not only is he falling short of that, he's giving them nothing offensively, right?
Right.
So these are things that are very tough to overcome for any coach, right? So if you're sitting there just going, Andrew Brunette, he's just not doing, it's just not that simple. It's not that simple.
No, but as we discussed yesterday, Predators fans want some sort of sign that the franchise is trying to improve. And admittedly, I don't think firing Andrew Brunette will improve this team all that much. But Predators fans, I think, would see it as, again, a sign that, hey, the organization knows that these results are unacceptable and the organization is doing something about it.
Yeah, just trying something
The
different.
bloodlust.
To see.
We talk
If
about
you
the
can get more
bloodlust.
out of the same group. Yeah.
Right.
But like, here are a couple examples. We talked about the center. Tommy Novak, right? Last year, optimistic. Maybe he could be the number 2 center. He fell off, traded to Pittsburgh. I got to be honest. I barely noticed the guy in 2 games in Sweden. He's not lighting it up there. Phil Tomasino, in a separate trade, traded to Pittsburgh, just got waived today. I don't know where his career is going. So it's hard to know. You know, at one time, Tomasino was considered a prospect at center. He got moved to the wing. So I'm just showing you that they've had to overcome a weakness at center. They hope will be better in a couple of years, and you got to be patient, right? Brady Martin, David Edstrom, the guys that maybe still Svechkov. They hope somewhere in there you've got some players that you can build around, but they're still very young. And in between, you've got a dilemma right now because they're struggling. And people want to see, they want the guys to get older faster. It's not going to happen anytime soon. And so they're in a pickle. What to do? But is it all on the coach? No, it's not all on the coach.
We'll get more into this tomorrow because here's something I did.
What's that?
I wrote down every major transaction that Barry Trotz has made as GM. And I thought it would be instructive to look back at those moves. So maybe we'll touch on that tomorrow. Jonathan Hutton will join us tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Silly Underdog Picks resumes at 5:20. Spoiler alert. I was the only person who won this week. So I'm very much looking forward to Silly Underdog Picks tomorrow. And Willie's back as commissioner after 2 weeks of me acting as commissioner. But we will touch on all of that and more tomorrow, 3 p.m. sharp.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful Tuesday. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music? Don't you forget about us because we will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. Peace.
Another one, Adam.